What would you do if, moments before saying, "I do," a little girl in the crowd whispered, "Don't marry her. You're my dad"? Jack Callahan stood alone on the rooftop terrace of the Callahan Tower, a sleek glass and steel monument that pierced the Charleston skyline. His name gleamed in brushed metal near the entrance downstairs, etched into the city like a signature he couldn't erase. The sun was setting, soft and golden, bathing the cobblestone streets below in amber. A warm breeze stirred his tie Italian silk, expertly knotted, then loosened again. It fit perfectly. But the man staring back at him in the dark reflection of the glass didn't. Behind him, his phone buzzed. A message lit up the screen. "Final tasting at 6. Vanessa wants your input on the amuse-bouche." He didn't move, didn't reply. From 32 stories up, the world looked elegant, controlled, just like everything else in Jack's life. At 38, he had it all. Architecture awards stacked in his downtown office, features in national magazines, a luxury condo that smelled like teakwood and lemon oil, and in 6 days, he'd marry Vanessa Blake, daughter of Charles Whitmore. Coastal real estate mogul, a union that would merge empires, strengthen portfolios, impress investors. But none of that filled the space expanding inside his chest, a space that no blueprint could measure. Jack walked back inside. His gaze fell on a thick, cream-colored envelope resting on his credenza. It hadn't moved in days. Neither had he. The name written in blue ink caught his eye again. Ava Carter. Her name didn't belong here, not in this pristine office, surrounded by glass awards and sterile perfection. He hadn't mailed it. Not yet. 7 years had passed. 7 years since he walked away from a screened-in porch and the sound of her laughter. 7 years since he convinced himself that ambition meant leaving love behind. But as the wedding drew closer, so did a question he couldn't shake. Was she happy? Did she think about that night under the magnolia tree? Had she forgotten him entirely? The elevator dinged behind him. Clara Callahan stepped out, clipboard in one hand, phone in the other. She wore a rust-red wrap dress and an expression that could slice concrete. "You didn't answer. Vanessa's waiting." "I know," Jack said, still looking at the envelope. Clara followed his gaze. Her breath hitched just slightly. "You're still thinking about sending it?" "I don't know," he admitted. "I guess I just want her to know I didn't forget." Clara walked to the window, arms crossed. "You're marrying someone else, Jack." "I know. And you want to invite your ex to come watch it happen." "It's not about that." His voice softened. "It's about not pretending like it didn't matter." Clara turned, fully facing him now. "What are you hoping for?" He paused. "I'm not sure." The silence stretched. Then Clara stepped forward, gently took the envelope, and set it beside his phone. "Then send it, or don't, but don't use it to punish yourself." Jack looked down. His fingers brushed the edge of the invitation, but he didn't pick it up. That evening, the city was quieter. The sun had slipped beneath the marshlands. The sky was turning lavender. Jack sat at his drafting table. Blueprints for the new Harrow Marina lay spread before him, sleek lines, perfect geometry, sterile brilliance. He leaned back, rubbed his temples. His thoughts drifted not to Vanessa, not to the wedding tent going up at Middleton Place, but to an overgrown garden on James Island. To the way Ava used to press her forehead to his when they argued, to the faint scent of basil on her skin, to the way she had once whispered, "Just don't leave me wondering, Jack." And he had. He'd left her wondering for 7 long years. Outside the window, the lights of Charleston blinked like distant stars. Inside, Jack Callahan sat in silence, one hand resting on an envelope, and the other, unknowingly, reaching towards something he thought he'd buried, but hadn't. The sun was already high over James Island, casting long golden beams across the Harmony Garden. Children's laughter floated on the breeze, soft, unburdened, and bright. Among the rows of sunflowers and thyme, Ava Carter knelt in the dirt, her gloves caked with soil. Her rubber boots squished slightly with each step, but she didn't care. This garden had been her home for years. More than the cracked apartment nearby, more than any borrowed address. It was hers. Built from grant money, donated tools, and a stubborn will that wouldn't quit. "Miss Ava, look what I found." A little boy, no more than 6, came bounding toward her. He held up a crooked carrot like it was buried treasure. Ava laughed, brushing the sweat from her brow. "That's one fine-looking carrot, Eli. Let's rinse it off and give it a try." She stood and stretched, dirt clinging to her jeans, the ache in her back a familiar companion. Not glamorous, but real, tangible. And that was what mattered. She turned toward the raised beds when she heard the light patter of small feet behind her. "Mommy!" She turned. A little girl ran toward her, waving something in the air. 6 years old, big green eyes. A head full of unruly curls, and a gap where her 2 front teeth used to be. Emily Callahan. Her daughter, her everything. Ava knelt as Emily reached her, holding out the envelope like it was fragile. This was in the mailbox. Ava's breath caught. Her fingers brushed the envelope. Thick cream stock. Handwritten address, no return name, but the handwriting, she knew it. Her heart stuttered. She turned it over, opened it slowly. A wedding invitation slipped into her hand like a whisper. "Jack Callahan and Vanessa Blake invite you to celebrate their union." The words blurred as she stared at them. 7 years, not a phone call, not an email. And now, this? Emily tugged her sleeve. "Are you sad?" Ava folded the invitation and tucked it back into the envelope. "It's just an old friend," she said, her voice gentle. Emily studied her mother's face, like she always did when she knew something important was happening. "Is he the friend you talked about when I asked about my daddy?" The question landed like a bell ringing in an empty church. Ava's lips parted. She wanted to lie, to soften it, to protect her. But instead, she whispered, "I think maybe he was." That night, as crickets sang and garden lights flickered like fireflies, Ava sat on the porch steps. The envelope rested on her lap, unopened now but not forgotten. The wooden screen door creaked behind her. Miss Thelma, her mother, stepped out holding 2 chipped mugs of tea. "I saw the mail," she said, settling beside her. "Figured you might need this." Ava took the tea, didn't speak right away. "Are you going?" "I don't know." Miss Thelma sipped her tea slowly. "You don't owe him anything. I know. But sometimes, her mother finished, the heart needs to see something through, even when the mind says don't." Ava stared at the dark sky. The stars were just starting to emerge. "What if it's a mistake?" Miss Thelma smiled softly. "Then let it be the last one." Silence. The kind that only exists between people who've survived each other's pain. Then Ava whispered, "I think I need to see him." The next day came with the hum of cicadas and the hum of uncertainty. Ava stood in front of her bedroom mirror. The envelope lay on the dresser. Her reflection looked unfamiliar, tired, wary. Behind her, Emily sat cross-legged on the bed, coloring quietly, humming a tune only she seemed to know. "You're thinking too hard," Miss Thelma called from the hallway. "That look never leads to good decisions." Ava turned slightly. "I feel insane even considering it." "In my experience, insanity is doing what you know will hurt. This is just unfinished business." Ava sat on the edge of the bed, envelope in hand. "You think I should go?" "I think you won't sleep until you do." Emily looked up. "Where are we going?" Ava glanced at her mother. "Just to a fancy house for a couple hours, that's all." Emily's eyes lit up.
Will there be cupcakes? Miss Thelma chuckled.
If there aren't, it's not a real wedding. But Ava's chest was tight, like it was being pulled in two directions. She hadn't seen Jack in 7 years. Had tried to convince herself it didn't matter, that Emily didn't need him, that she didn't need him. But now, with his handwriting in her hand and his daughter dancing barefoot in the hallway, there were moments, small flashes, the way Emily crossed her arms when frustrated, the way she sketched little houses with perfect symmetry, the green in her eyes. Ava stood, brushing a hand down her jeans. "I'll go, for 2 hours, and I'll keep my heart out of it." Miss Thelma said nothing. She didn't need to. She just nodded once, and in that quiet way mothers have, she understood everything. The day of the rehearsal buzzed with Charleston elegance. Golf carts whisked guests across the estate's manicured lawns, past strings of white lights and towering oak trees. Staff in pastel polos moved like shadows, placing napkins with surgical precision and adjusting the position of every ivory chair, as if the wedding depended on perfect angles. In many ways, it did. Jack Callahan stood on the wide veranda, his hand resting lightly on the wrought iron railing. The marquee gleamed near the reflecting pond, and beyond that, rows of chairs stretched like soldiers waiting for ceremony. He should have felt proud, excited, grounded. Instead, he felt like a stranger inside his own celebration. Behind him, the French doors creaked open. "Jack, there you are." Vanessa Blake stepped outside, her voice crisp. She wore tailored white linen. Her hair, pinned into perfection, didn't move with the breeze. Her presence was polished, always had been. But even now she barely looked at him when she spoke. "The florist needs confirmation on the centerpieces, and my father says the Langstons can't sit near the McKennas, apparently. Someone cheated at golf." Jack didn't answer right away. Vanessa glanced up. "Jack?" He turned to face her. "Do you ever wonder what all this is for?" She blinked. "Excuse me. This wedding, the chairs, the tent."
"The 9-tier cake. Do you think it'll make us happy?" A beat. Her jaw tightened just slightly.
"You're not having second thoughts, are you?" Jack held her gaze. "I'm asking." She stepped closer, her voice softening. "We're building something important here.
Our names, our businesses, our families." She reached up, brushing non-existent lint from his lapel.
"This is a partnership, and it works, doesn't it?" Jack didn't respond. The silence said enough. Later that afternoon, as the music swelled and guests arrived in clusters, a navy sedan pulled quietly to the side of the lawn. No fanfare. No spotlight. Ava Carter stepped out, wearing a modest cornflower blue dress. Her curls were loosely pinned back. In one hand, she held the invitation. In the other, the small fingers of Emily Callahan. The little girl's mouth opened wide. Whoa. The pond shimmered in the distance. The marquee sparkled. A string quartet tuned beneath the trees. Ava's stomach twisted. "This is something else," she muttered. Emily tugged her arm. "Do you see cupcakes?" Ava laughed, just a little. "Not yet." They walked slowly along the side lawn, unnoticed at first, but not for long. "Ava." The voice cut through the air like a sharp wind. Familiar. Low. Stunned. She turned. Jack Callahan stood several feet away, frozen. The world around him went quiet. The guests, the music, the perfection. All of it fell away. There she was. And beside her a little girl, wide-eyed, curious, with green eyes that matched his own. His heart fell into his stomach. Ava watched the realization bloom across his face. His posture stiffened, his lips parted, but no words came out. Emily peeked out from behind her mother's leg. "Hi," she said softly. Jack dropped to one knee instinctively. "Hi," he whispered back.
Then he looked up at Ava, his voice barely held together. "Ava, is she—" Ava met his gaze evenly.
She's Emily Callahan. No explanation, no confirmation, just a name. But the truth wrapped itself around his throat like a knot. Before he could speak again, another voice broke the moment. "There you are, Vanessa." Her heels tapped across the lawn as she approached. She was all polish, all presence. Until she stopped. Her eyes landed on Ava, then dropped to the little girl, then snapped back to Jack. "Who's this?" Ava straightened her shoulders. "I'm Ava, an old friend of Jack's." Vanessa offered a tight smile. "I've heard of you." Ava didn't flinch. Likewise. The moment pulsed. Jack cleared his throat. "Vanessa, this is Emily." Vanessa's brow lifted. "Lovely name," she said flatly, though her eyes never left Ava's. Ava could feel it. The quiet hostility underneath the polish, the kind of woman who didn't like surprises, especially ones under 4 feet tall. "Well," Ava said gently, touching Emily's shoulder, "we won't stay long. Just came to wish you well." Jack's voice caught. "You're leaving?" Ava nodded. "I think I've seen enough." Vanessa stepped slightly in front of Jack. "That's probably for the best." Ava's jaw tightened, but she didn't react. Didn't cause a scene. She simply turned, held Emily's hand, and walked away. Jack didn't move, couldn't. The sound of Ava's heels on the stone and the soft patter of Emily's steps beside her echoed louder than the quartet ever could. He watched them go until the crowd swallowed them whole. And in that moment, he knew his life was about to change. He just wasn't sure which part of it still belonged to him. That night, the Harrow estate stood quiet. Moonlight spilled across the marble floors, casting pale reflections on glass, silk, and stone. But none of it mattered to Jack Callahan. He stood barefoot in the hallway outside his suite, a linen shirt loose over his frame, his eyes fixed on the dark grain of the hardwood beneath him, as if the answers were written there, waiting to be read. He had imagined seeing Ava again, 100 different versions. In most of them, she was alone. A little curious, maybe even impressed by the life he had built. But not once had he imagined the little girl, Emily. Not once had he imagined her eyes, his eyes looking up at him with quiet trust. Not once had he prepared for a moment that would tear open everything he had carefully sealed shut. Inside the suite, Vanessa sat on the edge of the bed. Her robe was tied in a perfect knot. A tablet glowed in her lap. "You're back late," she said without looking up. "My mother was asking about the wine list." Jack didn't respond. Vanessa glanced up, finally taking in his expression. "What's wrong with you?" He hesitated. Then, "Did you know Ava had a child?" Vanessa's jaw twitched, barely perceptible. But there. She closed the tablet with a soft click. "She mentioned something years ago, a daughter." "I didn't think it was relevant." Jack stepped closer. "She has my eyes." Vanessa stood, her voice clipped. "So what are you saying? That you're her father? Because of eye color?" "I'm saying I think I need to find out." Vanessa folded her arms. Her voice turned sharp. "You're serious? A week before our wedding, you're entertaining some old flame and a child you've never met?" Jack's voice dropped. "She's not some old flame, and that child might be mine." Vanessa let out a laugh, short, brittle. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious." "You're throwing away everything for this." "No," Jack said. "I'm trying to figure out what I already threw away." Vanessa stared at him, her voice cold and deliberate. "You made promises to me, Jack." "I know. Then be careful which ones you break." She turned sharply, heels tapping across the floor as she disappeared into the dressing room, leaving Jack alone with silence and the weight of something he couldn't ignore anymore. Across town, Ava stood at the kitchen sink, a glass of water untouched in her hand. The porch light buzzed faintly behind her. Cicadas hummed their endless chorus.
Emily had been asleep for hours, curled against her favorite blanket. Miss Thelma leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. "You okay?" Ava nodded, but didn't speak. Miss Thelma continued gently. "I saw the look on his face. He didn't know, did he?" "No," Ava whispered. "He didn't." "Do you think he deserves to?" Ava turned to her mother.
Her eyes shimmered. I don't know what I think." Miss Thelma walked forward, laid a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "You've done right by Emily." "Always. But now that door's open, you have to decide what you're going to do with it." The next afternoon, Jack stood outside the Harmony Garden gate. Children's voices floated from within. The smell of rosemary and damp earth filled the air. Through the slats of the wooden fence, he spotted her. Ava, hair tied back in a scarf, gloves caked in soil. Cheeks streaked with smudges like freckles. She looked like home. He stepped forward. The gravel crunched beneath his shoes. She turned. Surprise flickered across her face. "Jack." "Hey," he said quietly. "I wasn't sure if I should come." "You're here," she replied, brushing her gloves on her jeans. "So, now what?" "I want to talk." She nodded, then led him toward a small cedar shed at the edge of the garden. The inside was warm, wood-paneled. It smelled like rosemary and sawdust and thyme. Ava leaned against the workbench. Jack stood by the door. "I wasn't expecting to see you again," she said. "I didn't expect any of this," he replied. "Jack, is she yours?" He didn't hesitate. "I need the truth." Ava held his gaze. "Yes." The word dropped between them like a stone in water. No ripples, just weight. Jack leaned back, his breath catching in his throat. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I tried," she said calmly. "You were in Dubai." "Your assistant screened my calls. I sent letters, one came back marked, refused. I figured you made your choice." "I didn't know." "I know that now." Jack stepped closer. "Why show up now? Why come to the wedding?" "I wasn't going to," she admitted. "Then I saw the invitation, and something in me needed to see if you'd look at her and recognize what I already knew." His voice cracked. "And I did." There was a long pause. Then Jack whispered, "I missed everything." Her first words, first steps. Ava's eyes glistened. And I was the one who had to make up bedtime stories about a dad who lived far away in somewhere. He reached into his pocket, unfolded a sketch. It was Emily, from memory. The curls, the upward tilt of her smile. "I drew this last night. I couldn't sleep." Ava took it, hands trembling. "You never stopped drawing?" Jack gave a sad smile. "Only the things that matter." They stood in silence, 7 years heavy between them. "I want to be in her life," Jack said softly. "I don't know how yet, but I want to try." Ava looked at him, her heart a battlefield between love and caution. "She's not a second chance, Jack. She's a whole life." "You don't get to walk in and out of it like it's a gallery." "I'm not walking out," he said. "Not again." For the first time, Ava didn't flinch, but she didn't speak either. Instead, she handed back the sketch, held his gaze, and said quietly, "Then start showing up." She walked past him into the garden, and this time Jack followed. The sky over James Island glowed with the soft haze of late afternoon. Clouds drifted like pulled cotton. The air smelled faintly of tomatoes, sun-warmed dirt, and hope. Jack Callahan stood on the porch, a flat, long package tucked under his arm, wrapped in brown paper and tied with twine. He looked different, less polished, more real. Ava Carter stepped out of the screen door, wiping her hands on a faded towel. "You're early," she said, eyeing the package with raised brows. He gave her a sheepish half-smile. I got impatient.
What is that? She asked, stepping closer. Jack held it up, fingers brushing the twine.
A swing, he said. Well, the pieces of one. Ava blinked. For what? For starting over, or maybe for remembering where we left off. He unwrapped it carefully on the porch. Cedar planks, thick, sturdy rope, edges sanded smooth. The wood still smelled fresh. Her eyes moved from the swing parts to the patch of earth beneath the old oak just off the porch.
I used to sit there when I was pregnant, she said softly.
Didn't have the energy to do much else. Jack's voice dropped. I should have been here. Yes, she replied, not unkindly. But you're here now. They stood in silence. Then Ava bent down, picked up one of the planks, and handed it to him. Well, she said, you're not putting it up alone. They worked in the hush of early evening. Jack tied the knots. Ava checked the leveling. The air was thick with sawdust, cicadas, and 7 years of unspoken words. Emily watched from the window, bouncing with excitement as the swing took shape. When Jack tugged the final knot tight, the ropes creaked gently. Sturdy, he said, stepping back. Looks like you still remember how to build something, Ava teased. Jack looked at her, eyes soft. Some things you don't forget. The swing hung still, golden in the setting sun. Then the screen door burst open. Emily ran barefoot down the porch steps, arms flailing, curls bouncing. Is it ready? Can I try it? Jack stepped aside, smiling. All yours, sweetheart. She hopped on without hesitation, soaring forward, laughing loud enough to make the wind jealous. Ava watched, her hand resting on the porch rail. She stole a glance at Jack. And for a flicker of a second, she saw him. The boy she once loved. The one who used to sketch tree houses on napkins. The one who whispered dreams into her hair beneath this very tree. She loves it, she said. Jack nodded, but his voice shifted. I want to give her more than a swing. Ava's expression sobered. Do you really understand what that means? He looked at her, serious. I think I'm starting to. It's not just weekend visits and ice cream runs, Jack. It's dentist appointments, tantrums in grocery stores, telling her no when she wants yes, showing up even when it's hard. I know, he said quietly, not because I've done it, but because I've missed it. He glanced back at Emily, her tiny hands gripping the ropes, her laughter filling the yard. Then I'll learn, he added. I'll fail, and I'll keep showing up anyway. Ava didn't speak for a moment, but something shifted in her face, not forgiveness, not yet, but something close, something like possibility. Later that night, Emily was asleep. Her body curled in a pile of books and stuffed animals, a blanket draped haphazardly over one leg. Ava and Jack sat on the porch steps, mugs of chamomile tea warming their hands. The swing swayed gently in the breeze, empty now, its ropes whispering to the stars. Jack glanced sideways at her. Do you think we could ever be us again? Ava stared ahead, not answering right away. Instead, she asked, Why did you really leave, Jack? Back then, he exhaled, long and slow. I told myself it was ambition, that I needed to chase something bigger. A pause. But the truth is, I think I was afraid. Afraid of what? Of how much I felt for you, of being ordinary, of waking up and realizing I wasn't who I thought I was supposed to be. She looked down at her mug. And now I'd trade everything I built for just one more year with you, with her. Ava's voice was barely above a whisper. You broke my heart. I know. It wasn't just that you left. It's that you disappeared. No letter, no call. No closure. Jack's voice cracked. I thought disappearing was kinder than admitting I was weak. Ava's eyes shimmered, but she blinked it away.
I don't know what this is, Jack. I don't know if it's nostalgia or something real, but I do know one thing. She looked at him. Emily comes first. Always. He nodded. That's why I'm here. A long silence stretched between them.
Then softly she said, "You can stay for breakfast tomorrow." She'd like that. Jack smiled. I'd like that too. And for the first time in years, there was no blueprint.
No polished presentation, no 5-year plan, just two people beneath a tree they once carved initials into, with a swing between them and the slow, tentative rhythm of something healing. The next morning broke warm and slow. Sunlight spilled through the kitchen window, casting gold over cereal bowls and crayon drawings on the table. Jack Callahan stood at the stove, awkwardly flipping French toast as Ava poured juice into tiny sunflower cups.
Emily hummed as she arranged 3 stuffed animals around her plate, VIP guests for breakfast, obviously. "Careful with the heat," Ava said, watching Jack fumble with the spatula. He grinned.
I design commercial buildings, not breakfast, she smirked. Well, if you plan on hanging around here, you'll want to master both. He looked over his shoulder. That's the plan, Emily beamed. Daddy made toast, real toast. The word hit Jack in the chest like a silent drum, Daddy. He hadn't earned it, not really, but he didn't correct her. Not today. He slid a golden slice onto her plate. Extra cinnamon, just like your mum used to make. Emily squinted. You mean Grandma? Jack chuckled. Yes, Grandma. But your mom, too. I borrowed her recipe once. Ava raised an eyebrow. Borrowed is generous. Borrowed without permission, he admitted. Better. Later that day, they wandered the local market. Charleston's Saturday vendors were in full bloom. Jazz musicians played on street corners. Tents curved around the waterfront like a painted ribbon. Emily darted between booths with her hand in Jack's, face sticky with jam. Hair wild from the breeze. Can I pick a flower for Mommy? She asked. Only if it smells better than syrup, Jack teased. She giggled. Everything smells better than syrup. At a flower stand, an elderly vendor with kind eyes handed Emily a marigold. For happy love, she said. Jack slipped a bill into the woman's hand while Emily twirled with the flower like it was made of stardust. Ava watched quietly. Something tender stirring just beneath her ribs. She looked away before Jack saw it, but he always noticed. Back at the house, Emily curled on the couch with Mr. Stripey and a coloring book. The marigold sat in a glass of water on the kitchen counter. Jack stepped onto the porch. Ava followed, arms crossed. She loves being with you, she said softly. His throat tightened. I love being with her. She trusts easily, Ava added, but she remembers deeply. He nodded. And you? I remember even more. Then she said it, without looking at him. Vanessa came by yesterday. Jack stiffened. What did she want? She didn't say much, just dropped off an envelope. Ava reached into her cardigan, pulling out a cream-colored envelope. His name, written in Vanessa's elegant, too-perfect handwriting. Jack opened it. Inside, a single note. It's done. Tell your board when you're ready. He exhaled, the weight of it crashing quietly into his chest. She pulled out of the firm, Ava said gently. Jack looked at the letter, then at her. She didn't deserve that kind of ending. Ava held his gaze. Neither did I. Later that afternoon, Ava, Jack, and Emily sat under the old oak tree, picnic blankets spread, juice boxes and peanut butter sandwiches between them. Emily dozed off with her head on Jack's shoulder. Sticky cheeks, bare feet, peace. Jack brushed a leaf from her curls. You look like you've done that 100 times, Ava murmured. I wish I had. A beat. I had a meeting this morning, with my firm. She looked at him. I resigned. You what? I stepped down. Sold my shares. Ava's brows furrowed.
Jack, that company was your legacy. He shook his head.
No. My absence was my legacy. I want something different now. She stared at him. You can't just walk away from everything you built. I'm not walking away. I'm walking towards something better. Her breath caught.
You're serious. Dead serious. I want to raise our daughter. I want to figure out if this thing between you and me has another shot. Before she could answer, a car pulled up at the far edge of the garden, a sleek, champagne-colored sedan. Jack turned, already knowing. Vanessa stepped out, heels clicking against gravel, blush-pink coat, dark sunglasses, lips pressed tight. She approached slowly, gaze flicking between them. "Well," she said, voice light but tight, "this is a charming scene." Ava stood, calm, grounded. "You're welcome to join us," she said, "but there's plenty of sand." Vanessa offered a tight smile. "I'm good, thanks." She looked at Emily, then at Jack. "She's adorable." Jack didn't blink. "Her name is Emily Callahan, and she's mine." Silence. Stretched thin. Vanessa's jaw twitched. "I assume this is what's been keeping you up at night." Jack met her gaze. "I told you I needed time, and this is how you spend it." "Playing house in a park with your ex and her child?" Ava stepped forward. "You don't get to talk about her like that." Vanessa ignored her. "You had 7 years." "Why now?" "Because I didn't know," Jack said. "And now that I do, I'm not walking away." Vanessa's lips parted. "You think I'm just going to watch you build a new family and smile from the sidelines?" "I don't have all the answers," he said quietly. "But I know they deserve more than silence." She stared at him, and for a second, something behind her eyes cracked. "You're not the man I thought you were." Jack nodded. "You're right." She turned, her heels clicking softly against the path. Then, over her shoulder, "Then maybe we're both lucky to find that out now." Ava watched her disappear into the fading light. Jack looked at her. "I'm sorry." She shook her head. "Don't be sorry for showing up. Just be sure you're ready to stay." He nodded. Then quietly she asked, "Do you still have that swing sketch?" He blinked. "The one from the porch? Before I left?" She nodded. "I think I do. Why?" Ava looked at the old oak tree. "Because I'm wondering if it's time to build another one." The morning of the wedding arrived, wrapped in picture-perfect stillness. The sky above Charleston was so blue it looked like it had been painted just for the occasion. The Whitmore estate buzzed with quiet energy. Florists made last-minute tweaks. Staff in white gloves laid hors d'oeuvres like clockwork. Guests arrived in sleek black cars, whispering behind polished sunglasses. Everything was beautiful. Everything was planned. And Jack Callahan stood at the edge of the garden, feeling like a man seconds away from telling a lie in front of 100 people. Rows of white chairs faced the ancient oak tree, the same one where Jack had rebuilt a swing just weeks ago. He stared at it now, his breath uneven. Then, through the crowd, he spotted a small figure. Emily. She wore a simple white dress, a marigold pinned at the waist. She looked around with wide, serious eyes, too grown up for her 6 years. She turned, found him, smiled, and in that moment, Jack knew he couldn't go through with it. The organ began to play, soft, reverent. A hush fell over the crowd. First the bridesmaids, then the groomsmen, then Vanessa Blake stepped into view. She was flawless, a vision in ivory, but Jack didn't see her. His eyes were fixed on something else. Just beyond the crowd, Ava, standing quietly holding Emily's hand. Her presence wasn't announced. She didn't belong on the guest list. But she belonged here, and Jack felt it in his bones. The music swelled. Vanessa reached the altar. The officiant cleared his throat. Guests leaned forward. But Jack didn't speak. His mind was full of swing ropes and French toast and sticky fingers and bedtime giggles. Of everything he had missed
and everything he didn't want to miss anymore. He turned toward the rows of people and said, "I can't do this." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Chairs creaked. Mouths dropped. Vanessa blinked, frozen. "Excuse me," she whispered. "I can't go through with this." He turned to the crowd, voice steady despite the quake inside him. "There's something I need to say." He looked at Emily, at Ava. "That little girl over there, her name is Emily Callahan, and she's my daughter." A collective inhale swept the lawn. Vanessa took a half step back, shock tightening her face. "I found out only recently, and it changed everything." He looked at Vanessa. "I'm sorry, truly, but I can't pretend I'm someone I'm not." From the edge of the aisle, Clara Callahan stepped forward. Jack's sister, a voice of reason, always. She spoke to the crowd. "This is the Jack I know, the one who owns his mistakes, the one trying finally to get it right." Jack looked at Ava, then back at everyone. "I'm choosing my daughter, not as an excuse, not as a way out, but because for the first time in my life, I know what matters." Silence. Then a soft sound. Clapping. One guest, then another. Not mockery, but understanding. Jack stepped down from the altar. Kneeling as Emily ran into his arms, she hugged him hard, no words. Just pure, unconditional joy. Vanessa stood still, a statue in silk, her eyes locked with Jack's one last time. Then she turned and walked away. No scene, no tears, just the quiet elegance of someone who had finally accepted the truth. The sun filtered through the oak leaves. Jack, Ava, and Emily stood beneath the tree. No one moved to stop them. No one questioned it. It didn't look like the end of a wedding. It looked like the beginning of a home. That night, the estate was still. Guests had dispersed, tables were cleared, champagne bottles packed away unopened. Jack stood at the swing beneath the oak, gently pushing Emily as she giggled in the dark. Ava stepped beside him. "She doesn't fully understand what happened today." "She doesn't have to," Jack said. "She just knows I showed up," Ava nodded. "Maybe that's enough. For now." He turned to her. "I meant what I said. I don't want to be a visitor in her life." "You're not," she whispered. "Not anymore." The stars above shimmered like scattered dreams. And for once, Jack didn't feel like he was chasing something. He was home, and this time he wasn't leaving. The clink of silverware, the soft hum of a ceiling fan, and laughter small, bubbling, the kind that fills a room from the floor up. Jack Callahan looked across the dinner table at Emily, who was trying to balance a carrot on her nose. Ava shook her head with mock disapproval. "I swear this house had manners once." Emily giggled. "I'm a bunny. Bunnies don't need manners." Jack raised a brow. "She's got a point." Ava rolled her eyes, but the smile tugging at her mouth betrayed her. It had been 3 weeks since the wedding that wasn't. 3 weeks since Jack had packed up his old life and stepped into a new one barefoot, uncertain, but ready. They'd fallen into rhythm faster than he expected. Morning pancakes, afternoon gardening, evening storybooks and sleepy curls. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And Jack, for the first time in years, felt like he belonged somewhere that didn't come with a title or a salary. After dinner, Emily dashed outside to the porch swing. Jack and Ava stayed in the kitchen, washing dishes, shoulder to shoulder. "I forgot how messy kids are," Jack muttered, scrubbing a pan. "You forgot?" Ava teased. "You never knew." He laughed. "Fair." She glanced at him. "You okay?" He nodded. "Yeah, just still adjusting." "To what?" He paused. "To the quiet. To the fact that I'm not running anymore." Ava dried her hands. "You don't have to prove anything here, Jack." He looked at her. "I know, that's what scares me." She leaned back against the counter. You always thought love came with conditions, didn't you? Not consciously, he said. But yeah. She was quiet a moment. We don't need you to be perfect. I don't want to fail either. You will, she said softly. So will I. But Emily doesn't need a perfect father.
She needs a present one. That night, Jack tucked Emily into bed. She clutched Mr. Stripey close, blinking up at him.
Daddy? She whispered. His heart clenched. He'd heard it before, but it still hit different in the dark.
Yeah, Bug? Are you going to stay forever now? He bent down, kissed her forehead.
I'm staying for every bedtime, every birthday, every scraped knee, and every school play, she smiled. Even the ones where I'm a tree, especially those. Later, Jack sat on the porch steps, a blanket draped over his shoulders, watching the stars breathe over the marshland.
Ava joined him with 2 mugs of tea. You always liked the quiet, she said, handing him a cup. I like it more now. She sipped her tea.
So what's next? He shrugged. I've been thinking, maybe start my own firm here. Small. Local. Projects that actually help people. She smiled. You mean not skyscrapers with rooftop helipads? I mean homes. Community centers. Schools. Sounds like someone's found his why. Jack turned toward her. What about you?
I've been barging into your life pretty hard, Ava chuckled. You didn't barge, you blended. I want to do it right, Ava.
All of it. Not just for Emily, for you too. Her eyes softened. Then take it slow.
Let it be real. He nodded, then asked gently, Can I take you to dinner? Just us? She looked up, surprised.
Like a date? Like a beginning. The following Friday, Ava stood in front of the mirror, dressed in soft navy, lipstick just barely visible. Emily peeked in. You look like a princess. Ava smiled. And you look like the best chaperone I ever had. Jack appeared behind her in the mirror's reflection, black button-up, jeans. Nervous grin. You ready? She turned, took his arm. I think I am. Dinner was at a little place near the water, all candles and low jazz. They talked like old friends, rediscovering the things they'd once whispered under blankets and behind sketchbooks. She told him about med school dreams she gave up. He told her about business trips that left him feeling hollow. They laughed, paused, and laughed again. And when the waiter brought dessert, they stayed. No phones, no rush. Just 2 people who never thought they'd circle back to this kind of soft. After they dropped Emily off at Miss Thelma's for a sleepover, they returned to the porch. Jack looked at her. Can I kiss you? Ava smiled. You didn't ask last time. I didn't want to assume anything. Then yes, she whispered. He leaned in. And it wasn't fireworks or a movie score. It was warm, safe. Right. The kind of kiss that says we might just make it this time. Inside, Emily's picture book lay open on the couch. It was a drawing she made earlier that week, 3 stick figures, holding hands beneath a tree with a swing. She'd written one word underneath in shaky crayon. Family. And in every quiet way that mattered, that's exactly what they were becoming. It started with a cough. At first, no one noticed. Kids get colds, weather changes. Nothing unusual. But by the 3rd day, Emily's cough had turned into wheezing, and her normally bright eyes looked dull, tired. Ava paced near the sofa, phone in hand. Dr. Whittaker can see her in 20 minutes, she said quickly. Jack was already grabbing his keys. Let's go. The drive to the clinic was silent. Jack kept glancing at the rearview mirror. Emily, pale and sleepy, rested her head against her mother's shoulder. He had never felt this kind of helplessness before, not in boardrooms, not in lawsuits, not even in heartbreak. This was different. This was his daughter. Dr. Whittaker, a warm woman with silver-streaked hair, led them in immediately. She examined Emily gently, her voice calm. I'm going to run a few tests, she said.
just to be safe. Her oxygen levels are slightly low. Jack gripped the armrest of the chair.
Ava reached over and took his hand without a word. Minutes stretched into hours. Emily was hooked to a small oxygen tube. She didn't complain, didn't cry, just looked up at Jack with wide, trusting eyes.
Will I be okay, Daddy?
He swallowed the lump in his throat. You'll be more than okay, Bug. We've got you. Outside the room, Jack and Ava sat in the hallway.
Jack rubbed his hands together, agitated. I should have noticed sooner. I thought she was just tired. Ava placed her hand on his knee.
You're here now. That's what matters. No, Jack said. I should have caught it.
I'm still learning how to be her dad, and it scares the hell out of me. Ava leaned closer. It scares me too, Jack. Every day. But we do it together. Dr. Whitaker returned with test results. Good news, this is a severe respiratory infection, but it's treatable. She'll need close monitoring, rest, and a few days with oxygen support, but she'll be okay. Ava exhaled, tears pricking her eyes. Jack leaned back, a wave of gratitude crashing over him.
Thank you, he whispered. Dr. Whitaker smiled.
She's a strong kid. Gets that from someone. Ava smiled softly. She gets it from both of us. They stayed overnight in the pediatric observation room.
Ava curled beside Emily in the recliner, but Jack didn't sleep. He sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker in and out like a heartbeat. He thought about the wedding he walked away from. The firm he let go, the life he thought he wanted, and none of it mattered now. None of it compared to the feeling of watching his daughter fight for breath. This was the only legacy that mattered. In the quiet of 3:00 a.m., Emily stirred.
Daddy, she whispered. He rushed to her side. Right here, sweetheart. She reached for his hand.
I don't like hospitals. He smiled through tired eyes.
Me neither.
Will you sing? He blinked. I don't know any lullabies. Make one up. So he did. Softly, awkwardly, heartfully. And for the first time in his life, Jack Callahan sang a made-up lullaby to the little girl who saved him from the man he used to be. By morning, Emily was breathing easier. Her smile had returned, and so had Ava's. They brought her home that afternoon. The house felt warmer, quieter, but more alive than ever. Later, Jack stood outside on the porch. Emily was napping, Ava beside her. Clara, Jack's sister, pulled up in her car. You okay? She asked.
Jack nodded. Yeah, just had the longest night of my life. She walked over, wrapped her arms around him.
You're doing good, Jack. I don't feel like I am. Trust me, she said. Showing up at 3 a.m. with lullabies, that's hero-level dad stuff. He laughed, eyes glinting.
I thought I knew what strength was. Turns out it's holding your daughter's hand when you're terrified and not letting her see it. Clara squeezed his shoulder. She sees it, Jack. She just sees it through love. That evening, Emily sat bundled on the porch swing, blanket over her lap, juice box in hand. Jack sat beside her. You gave us a scare, Bug. She grinned. Was I brave? The bravest. A pause. Daddy? Yeah? I dreamed you didn't leave this time. He looked at her. His throat tightened.
I didn't, he whispered. I'm still here. Ava stepped onto the porch, 3 mugs of cocoa in hand. She passed them around, sitting between the two. They sat in silence, the wind brushing through the trees, the swing creaking gently under their weight. And for all the fear, for all the pain of the last 2 days, something unshakable had taken root. They weren't just healing. They were becoming, not perfectly, not easily, but together. Spring arrived softly in Charleston. Dogwoods bloomed along the sidewalks. Porch swings swayed lazily in the afternoon breeze, and Jack Callahan stood on an empty plot of land, blueprints in one hand, a crayon drawing in the other. The paper was wrinkled,
a child's version of a house with 3 smiling stick figures under a tree. Emily's drawing. He had kept it in his wallet since the day she gave it to him, because in its crooked lines and purple sun, she had drawn what he hadn't dared to believe was possible. A home.
Ava parked her car nearby, Emily skipping out ahead of her. "Did you bring it?" Jack asked. Emily held up a small envelope.
"Yep, my wish letter."
They had started the tradition after her hospital stay every month. She'd write a wish, seal it, and bury it in the yard. Jack read the first one once by accident. It simply said, "Please don't leave again." He had cried alone on the porch that night, and sworn to never make her write that wish again. They marked the spot beside the old oak tree stump. Emily dug a small hole, dropped in the envelope, and covered it with dirt and a marigold. "I hope this one's about a puppy," Jack teased. Ava smiled. "She won't tell anyone, not even me." "Good. Secrets make strong roots," Jack said, patting the soil. They stood back, 3 people, 1 future. And only one thing left to decide. That evening, as Emily slept, Jack and Ava sat on the front steps of the house they were renting. The stars were soft. The kind of sky that made people ask big questions. Jack held her hand. "I've been thinking," he said. "Uh-oh," Ava replied playfully. "No, not like that. I've been thinking about permanence." She turned. "We've built a rhythm. Emily's safe, we laugh. We cook, we mess up, and we fix it. We're doing this thing, Ava." "We are," she said quietly. "But we haven't named it." Jack reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a small velvet box. Ava's breath caught. "No speeches," he said quickly. "No pressure. Just a choice." He opened the box. Inside, not a traditional diamond ring, but a delicate band engraved with a swing under a tree. Her lips parted. "You had this made." "Used the first sketch I ever drew of us," Jack said. "I don't need an answer tonight, but I needed you to know you and Emily are it for me." Ava closed the box gently, then looked at him. "You want honesty?" "Always." "I'm scared." Jack nodded. "Me too. But I don't want to live a life where fear makes decisions for me anymore." She held up the box. "Ask me again tomorrow morning." He smiled. "I can do that." The next day, Jack awoke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Emily's giggles outside. He found Ava in the kitchen, barefoot, pouring creamer. She didn't say anything, just slid the ring box across the counter. Jack opened it and found the ring gone. In its place, a note. "Build it. Together." 6 months later, the house was finished. It wasn't grand or flashy, but it had sunlight in all the right corners. It had a reading nook for Emily, a messy studio for Ava, and a porch swing that swayed under a tree they planted as a family. On the mantel above the fireplace, they framed Emily's crayon, drawing the original blueprint of their forever. Neighbors sometimes asked how they met. Ava would smile and say, "It's a long story." Jack would add, "But it ends here." And Emily proudly would say, "They built a house because I wished for it." One Sunday afternoon, Ava and Jack stood in the backyard, watching Emily chase fireflies. She twirled barefoot in the grass, laughter echoing into the soft dusk. Jack leaned over and whispered, "Still scared?" Ava rested her head on his shoulder. "Only of how much I love this life." He wrapped his arm around her. "I think that's the best kind of fear." As fireflies danced, and the swing creaked in rhythm with the breeze, they stood there, 3 hearts, 1 story, and a house that had taken years, pain, and grace to build. Not perfect, but whole. And this time, forever, was theirs to keep. In life, we often chase success, status, or the appearance of control, only to discover, too late, that the most meaningful things were the quiet ones we left behind. This story reminds us that healing is possible,
even after years of silence. That love, when rooted in truth and humility, can rebuild what was once lost. Jack's journey is not just about becoming a father, it's about becoming present. Ava's forgiveness is not weakness, it's strength shaped by grace. And little Emily teaches us all that a child's hope can restore broken adults, one bedtime story and drawing at a time. For older hearts who have lived through regret, loss, or love deferred, this tale offers more than comfort, it offers a mirror. It says, it's never too late to go back, to choose love over pride, family over fear, and honesty over perfection.
We can't rewrite the past, but we can rewrite what comes next if we have the courage to knock on the door we once walked away from and say, I'm here now, let's build something real,